All right. Can everyone see the PowerPoint that says multi-camera broadcaster? Okay, great. Amazing. All right. Hi, if you don't know me, my name is Joe DeViti. Just a little bit of background about who I am. I'm a senior VMA major with a focus on TV production, a little bit more of a focus on directing, some background about my experience. Ooh, that didn't load. I've directed a lot of stuff. Here's a quick list. Musicians Wanted, if you haven't heard of it, is musical performances. The Timeline, I'm producing for EIV and directing it. Good Morning Emerson, The Box Score, also on EIV, a handful of Emerson Channel shows. I've also produced a decent amount of Emerson Channel shows, and I'm now producing the EIV show, The Timeline. And I will bring up why that's important later. So before we get started about what a director what makes a good director, let's talk about what a director does. So if you've never been in a control room environment, the director in a broadcast or in a multi-camera kind of scenario functions a bit differently than a film set. They have different responsibilities and have different things they need to do during the actual shoot. So some of that includes directing the actual show itself, which is live cutting cameras, giving feedback to actors, coordinating, managing, overseeing audio, playback, Chiron, which is graphics, and shading. So your job is to oversee all of that as it's happening live. You have to create shot lists and camera cards for your cam ops to use, and then prepare yourself and the crew for the broadcast. Your job is also to creatively and reasonably capture a performance, scene, or broadcast. Put reasonably in there because multi-camera directing ranges everything from musical performances to live sports. So like if you're doing a soccer game, you don't need Dutch angles and you don't need like crazy shots. So sometimes you just need to capture everything. You're also leading the crew before and during the show, and then rolling to record. That means you're recording the show. So as a director, your job is to say roll to record. And if you don't do that, you're not going to record the show, which I've seen that happen multiple times, and it never goes well with the producers after. So make sure you say roll to record, or else your show will just disappear. So how to get started as a director at Emerson. There's not really one direct route to being a director. You could be an associate director first. For me, I was a jib operator and then a director. I've seen people jump from audio to director. It truly isn't just like a one straight path. I would suggest trying everything. It's good to have a good idea of what everyone does. Also try shadowing an upperclassman director, kind of get a feel of what they do and also understand what the control room looks like during a broadcast. Also, if you can hear construction, I'm sorry. Watch some shows from previous semesters so you know what it looks like, both the show you want to direct, but also what the studio looks like, and then watch some real TV. There's plenty of great shows that have good examples of what good directing looks like. You just have to look for them. And then when you're applying, during the interview, just be passionate about the show, even if like deep down you don't care about news. If you want to direct a news show, just like show that you want it. The producers want to make a good show. They also want to hire someone who wants to make a good show. So just act like you want to do it, even if you don't. But also try to direct something you want to do. You'll have more fun. Be prepared for interview questions. Just some common ones I have listed there is like working under pressure. What would you do if like something breaks, like your switcher or Chiron or something? So they'll throw that in there. How do you work in a team environment? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Which is an awful question. Coming with fresh ideas for a show. So if you're going out for, let's say, Speechless for the Emerson channel, come with a new idea. Producers always like a little input during the interview so they know you're interested in it. And it takes a little bit of luck. You got to get hired first. So sometimes that means getting lucky. So communicating as a director during production. So again, as a director, you're different than a film director. You are more actively involved with the show as it's happening. So you have to say some stuff that you wouldn't say on a film set. So there's a set of like lingo that you'd use. Just quickly going over some of the basics. If you've never been in a control room, I'll talk about what it looks like in there, but ready is previewing something that's going to go in a program. Take is putting preview into program. Fading and dissolving is what it sounds like. Animate is playing a graphic. Roll is rolling back video that you have in playback. And then track and mic is telling audio to track either a person or a package. So if you're rolling back a commercial or you're tracking someone's mic, you have to say it because you're in charge of the entire broadcast. So again, if you've never been in the control room, this is called an RTS panel. This is how you communicate with your entire crew. Everyone in the control room has one of these. The stage manager has like a little belt pack that's connected to it. I won't go through the whole thing, but each position has a corresponding up and down switch. Up is to listen, down is to talk. When you get a chance and go into the control room, it'll make a lot more sense in person, but you communicate with everyone as the director. So there's a little bit of etiquette with comms, just because you don't want everyone talking over each other. So the number one thing is the director should be talking to everyone because you're the one guiding the whole show. So if someone can't hear you, they won't know what's happening. No one should be talking to the director unless it's like an emergency or they really need to point something out. And then the director, you should really mute yourself when you're talking to producers. Not everyone needs to hear talking to a producer. Like your cam ops don't need to hear you talking about something during a commercial break. That's not necessary. So just good etiquette to mute yourself. I'll quickly go over this, but there's a lot of different positions in broadcast that again are different than film. So just a quick summary of what they do. So associate director I'll talk about more, but it's like your right-hand man, does whatever the director needs to do or needs them to do. Technical director is the one that's actually pushing the buttons to cut cameras. Chiron operator is playing graphics. Playback operator is playing back video. Teleprompter is teleprompter. Shader is someone who white balances all of the cameras and adjusts the colors during the show. Usually you don't need a live one, but it helps to have one. Typically you won't see someone doing it live, but I've seen, like, for example, the EIVs, when it's the bigger version of it, they always have multiple shaders because there's like 10 cameras. So that's something. Audio engineer, audio mix, does all the live mixing for the show. SM, stage manager, is managing the space, and then camera operator operates the camera. So now onto a little bit more interesting things. What you're actually using as a director during the show. So there's really two categories of shows. There's non-performance and then performance. And then there's sports, but I'm not going to talk about that today. If you've never seen one before, this is what a script and a rundown looks like. On your left is a script, on your right is a rundown. As you can see, they look somewhat similar because they're supposed to be. They're your two like best friends during the show. The script has all the dialogue that's happening during the show, but it also has different items that are supposed to pop up during it. So some things that they share. Item number is telling you where in the show you are. So the item number corresponds on the script and rundown. So for example, in this is from the EIV's Gala 2 years ago. And I AD'd that. And so we were on section 3 of the show. So the script and rundown matched on their numbers. So that way, if you ever got lost, you could just skip to item 3, know exactly where you are. There's elements. So within the elements, it tells you different things. It tells you what graphics are playing back and can tell you what videos are playing back. In this case, it has lower thirds and like what was on a screen. You also have the section name telling you what section it is, and it also tells you who's in it. So it has the host names and it says it's the host monologue. So this is another example of a script and rundown. This is from Good Morning Emerson. So this is a news show instead of an award show, so it looks a bit different. So again, item numbers are there. This is the section headers. These are the elements. This is the elements, what they look like during the show. So you have a lower third and an over the shoulder. They all just correspond. I'm going to send a PDF of this PowerPoint after, but this is a link to the studio website that was made. It has a bunch of different guides on it. Someone named Rachel Westra, who was the production supervisor for EIV 38, made an explanation of rundowns and making them. Much better explanation than me because I hate making them. But you can always check that out to get a good idea of what that looks like. And then music breakdowns and shot lists. So this is for performances only. You won't see these for normal, like non-performance shows. So these are two examples of what music breakdowns look like. They're basically your script, and they're formatted like a script too. So on the left is the one I've typically used, but I'm trying to get away from it. It's based off the British version of directing. So as you can see, there's numbers and then lyrics. Each of those numbers is a beat. So each line is a whole bar of music, and then each number is a beat. That way you can count out the music if you want to. You can also just like keep track of where you are with that. Typically you have an AD counting bars and beats for longer shots. But on the right is the version that most professionals use. It has a very similar thing. So it has, as you can, if you look closely, it says 8 in like 2 dashes and then guitar. So that's 8 bars of guitars, and then vocals join. Just keeps track of the music for you, because obviously you can't, if you want, you could put like chords on there if you wanted, but not very helpful. So instead they break it up by bars so you can keep track of where you are. It also has time codes in that version, which makes it a little bit better. The other thing is shot list. So there's not really a specific format for shot list. It's more just make what you want, and make what works best for you. You're not looking at the shot list during the show. It's more giving it to cam ops and also making sure you know what shots you want to do. I made a Google sheet that automatically populates camera cards. So like if you say a shot is camera 2, it will make a little sheet that's all camera 2 shots. Saves you some time instead of having to copy and paste over and over. But this is kind of what mine looks like. So the left is all the shots, then the right is just one of the cameras. Multiviewer. So if you've never been in a control room, this is what I was talking about with preview and program. So preview, if you look on either of the sides, the left screen is preview. So that's what you can see, and that's what's coming up next. And then right is program. That's what the audience sees. So anything that's not in program, the audience won't see. But your multi-viewer gives you all of the sources that your technical director has options to take. It also lets you see all the cameras and playback. So if you ever want to look at something before you take it, it's up there. This is a fun picture I like to show. If you don't know who this is Glenn Weiss. He directed like 5 Tony Awards, a bunch of Oscars. This is him a couple weeks or a month ago at the DNC, well, in his house directing the DNC with no shoes on, with his Emmys in the background flexing on everyone. But again, multi-viewer, same idea, different location, all works the same. So that's what you're using, but now you have to actually prepare yourself and your crew. So there's a couple different things you need to do. Creating a set plot, knowing what your show is going to actually look like, setting expectations for your crew, and then pre-production. So the reason I was talking about producing is your job is not the job of a producer, but you still need to prep like a producer. The way I like to look at it is a producer is giving the director all of the tools they need, and then the director's actually doing it. So this is like the part in the process where you actually do something. So set plots. These are some examples I've made in the past. Very ugly. I don't know how to do graphic design, but they work. They just get the point across. The point of the set plot is showing where your cameras are going to go, where people are going to go, and then kind of just explaining what you're going to look for with shots, because once your cam ops know where they're standing, you can explain shots a lot more easy. So like if you want a close up, now they know what side of the person they're coming from. They know exactly what you're looking for. I also have a link to the studio plot that you can use on there. This is an example of what it looks like transitioned from the plot to the actual thing. So I had all the people laid out. Turns out it wasn't 1 drummer, it was 2, but I fixed that at the last minute. And then I had all my cameras out there. So this is from the jib, which is number 4. So you plan it out. It's never really going to be exactly to scale as you want it, but that's how it looks. So finding your look, you want to make a lookbook, which is not an actual book. Just like film or anything else, production design, you want to come in with like a list of ideas of what you want the show to look like. As a director, you want to work with the producers, lighting designer, production designer to create that look, and it's easier to communicate with prior examples because they can't really see what you're thinking unless you can explain it, and having something to explain it with makes it a lot easier. I would say look for inspiration from previous semesters and professional shows. People have been making stuff, TV stuff at Emerson in that studio for like 15, 20 years before they moved before that. But there's plenty of examples. If you want to make something, someone's probably made similar things, and then you can do better with it. Also, if anyone has a question, just use the raise hand thing. I think that'll tell me if someone has a question. Anyway, there's some stuff to keep in mind. Just like film, you can mess with your cameras and that'll change how it looks. You can change the f-stop, white balance, and filters. Just the thing to remember with the cameras is they're pretty high quality. So if you want the f-stop to drastically change, like if you want a closer depth of field, you have to drastically change the f-stop, something to keep in mind. So again, working closely with your lighting designer to create specific looks. I'll give some examples in a second. And then like any type of show can really be improved by someone who comes in with creative ideas and like actively tries to implement them. So here are some examples I've done and some examples that I've worked with. So top left, musicians wanted. We had our lighting designer was like the driving force on this. His name's Ryan Healy. He's currently a lighting director professionally, very successful. But he had these like light poles that are now super popular hanging from the grid, which gave it like a black backdrop. So as the director, I wanted to work with that and try to get shots that kind of go into the void. Whether or not it worked, questionable. But bottom right, I'll talk about more later, but that was the Christmas episode of Good Morning Emerson. So we built like a fake like living room and had a solo artist in there. Top left is another Good Morning Emerson thing. So that's an example of using a star filter on a camera. So the star filter, if there's enough light pointed at the camera, it will cause like this star effect. They use it a lot on award shows. And then bottom right, we were using mirrors and projectors. So like the light that's on the back wall is coming from a glass gobo pointed at the light. Top left, for this, I wasn't directing. This was someone named Haley Broderick. It was a teleplay for EIV called Cyclone from a couple years ago. You can look it up. It's pretty funny. But it was two separate like bedrooms. So she wanted to break it into like a double shot that made sense. So having a two box like that where you just combine two cameras into one shot made that work. And then Good Morning Emerson is a news show, so very flat and like you just got to accept that's what news looks like. So for that, my main wide shot was a jib instead of just a still shot, so it was a little more visually interesting. And then last example, top left and bottom right were from the same episode of Musicians Wanted, but top left we sent a program feed into a VHS and then sent it back out because he had like an 80s aesthetic that we were trying to go for. So we tried to make it look like a VHS. It still looked better than a VHS because, again, cameras are very high quality. And then bottom right, I put a Sony A7S in the grid because I wanted a shot over the drums. Again, just something you can try. So setting expectations for your crew. This is much more important than I think people give it credit for. You want to make sure your crew and your cam ops understand what shot composition you're looking for. So not only like what shots you're looking for, but what they actually look like. Like, again, we're all like at a film school, so we understand what a close-up is. But we have other shots like cowboy shots, which is like from the hypothetical holster up, medium shots, and you just want to explain what exactly the shot is so your cam op isn't confused and like trying to just judge for themselves. Try to give them a little direction. Reviewing your shots with your camera operators. You can mark down like where in the song it is, but you should really listen to the song with them, kind of point out like, yeah, this is where I want you to do this. Just give them an idea of what they're doing when. Going through the rundown with your entire crew if possible is a great idea. That way cam ops aren't lost in the middle of like a block of news because then they're not doing anything and they'll get lost and confused. And then talking to your AD, which I will talk about in a second, telling them what you need from them and then making sure you're on the same page so no one gets lost. Pre-production. We all love pre-production. Working with your producers on the structure of the show is really important. Some shows don't really have much of a structure, so it is what it is, but like, don't be afraid to ask questions or give suggestions, but stay in your lane, I guess is a good way of saying it. It's good to give feedback and creative input, but also like remember you're being hired by the producer, so if they have an idea they're really stuck on, then just like try to figure out a way to make it work rather than fight against it. And then make sure your producers know what you're looking for the show, so they're not confused when they walk into the studio and it looks completely different than what they thought. And then see where you can take initiative and have creative control. So I have a couple of examples of what I did when I was given a little bit more room. So this was the VHS. Again, it looks kind of like a VHS, a little bit too good. That's just because of the cameras. Another example, the top right, I wanted a shot of the keyboard, so then I got a GoPro, and then I just put it on the keyboard. Didn't ask them to do it. I was just like, I'm gonna do it. I hope you guys are okay with it. And they're like, okay, whatever, sure. And then bottom right, this was from the Christmas episode. We built like a full 360 fake living room, which kind of didn't look like a living room, but the one part about it that I thought was fun is we had a Steadicam in there. She was singing Silent Night. So what we did is we had the Steadicam circle twice, and then at the end of the second circle, pulled out, and then we got rid of that rice flat and the fireplace that was there. So then, that was not supposed to. Anyway, we moved the rice flat so then 3 other cameras could get shots. So it's just about getting creative, trying to make it work. Just experiment. This is a great time to make mistakes. So preparing yourself for the show, it's really different for every type of show. There's not like one method, and every person's different. But for like news, looking through the rundown and script, watching the packages that are going to play so you know where they end and where they start. Performances is just listening to the songs over and over and over and going over the shots in your head. Sketch and narrative. I've done a little bit of comedy my first year directing, and it's just like reviewing blocking and timing of the script. It's just on your own, having other people read it with you so you can kind of feel out the timing. One thing you can do is call the show out in your head or out loud at night. So you can call cameras, call rolling back playback, just tell your roommates if they don't think you're talking to yourself. That's a good way to just see what the show is going to look like in your head. Okay, so I'm going to quickly talk about associate director and stage manager. These are underutilized positions at Emerson sometimes, or just confusing positions for people. So the associate director's job is to stay 30 seconds ahead of the director or 1 page ahead of them, depending on like what the show is. They really do whatever the director needs them to do, but some typical responsibilities is animating lower thirds, prepping everyone else for what's coming next. So telling playback, audio, graphics, stage manager, like what's up in the next block, so they're not surprised when we randomly go to a commercial break. And then keeping track of times for packages and segments. So if there's like an interview, they can keep track of how long that interview is. Or if it's a package, they can say how long is left before it ends, so you don't just go to a black screen. Getting the most out of your AD really is just getting them looped in early and often so they know what's happening. Getting them into the pre-production process can be hard because like they're not really doing anything, but just so they have their eyes on it. Make sure they know what you're looking for. So just like the cam ops, it's setting expectations for shots, because during performances, they're the ones prepping cameras. And then asking their opinion about something if you're unsure. They'll feel like they're more involved if you ask them questions and ask for their opinion. It makes the relationship a lot better. So stage manager, I bring up because they are your eyes, ears, and mouth in studio very literally, because if someone isn't on a headset, they can't hear you, which is typically talent and guests or someone walking around the studio. They manage the space and put people and things where they need to be. They cue and ready talent, and then they manage the performers in a space. So it's really important to have a close relationship with your stage manager because they really are your voice in the studio. Multitasking and improvising. So one thing I've heard from people when I was asking like what I should put in this workshop is talking about improvising and how to stay calm. This is what directing feels like sometimes, and you just gotta roll with it because it will feel like everything's burning down. So one thing to keep in mind when you're directing is things are going to go wrong. We are all students. It happens in the real world, so like it's gonna happen here. And the best directors are people that can either stay calm or at least pretend to be calm. Because everyone is listening to your voice over headset, chances are if you freak out, they're gonna freak out, everyone's gonna start freaking out, and it's gonna get worse. So my single best tip is really focus on fixing the problem rather than talking about the problem. Giving solutions, or at least telling other people to find a solution, is better than just saying, oh, this is a problem, I don't know what to do about it. And again, the biggest thing is that your job is to put out fires before they reach program. If you see something going wrong in studio, the audience probably doesn't see it if it's not on camera and it's not being picked up by audio. So if it looks like something's going wrong, you probably have a chance to fix it. So what do you do if something goes wrong? Preparing for the worst case scenario, obviously, have a backup plan. Typically people say just go to logo loop, which is just a looping logo. That'll buffer some time during a commercial break if you need extra time. Again, remembering an audience doesn't necessarily see what you see. You'll see way more than they do, which means everything that's going wrong. And if you start to feel overwhelmed, just like stick to the basics of simple cutting. You can drop graphics. You don't have to go as advanced as normal. You can really just simplify it so you don't feel like you're getting overwhelmed. I'm going to skip this part, but just some examples of things that have gone wrong. During EIV 38, our graphics like software crashed during the show when the credits were supposed to play. We've had cameras cutting out during the gala. I was directing Good Morning Emerson, and like packages were rolled back in the wrong section. It happens. You just have to adapt to it. For the package, for example, we were supposed to do an interview, and then there's a game with a guest later on, and it was pre-recorded, but then the game played first. So we had to scramble and reshuffle the rundown during the game, and then it worked out, but it's just knowing what's happening during your show. So if something goes wrong, you can fix it. So I'll skip that. I'll play a little of this. So this is just some examples of stuff I've done with my track on it, so you'll hear what I'm saying during the show. Try to follow along. Also, let me know if you can't hear it, but this is just an example of Good Morning Emerson, and then I'll do an example of a musical performance.
Trigger. Roll A. Mike and cue them.
Coming up, a police officer fatally shot in New Jersey.
Wipe.
And a
Ready,
deadly
C.
volcanic eruption has left an island
Roll
in
C.
shambles.
Wipe.
All that and more today,
trigger to 2.
Wednesday, December 11th.
Trigger. Great. Get ready to insert page 1. Get ready with your push camera 2. Yeah, I know. 2, start your push and cue them.
Good
Insert
morning,
page 1.
Emerson. I'm Lauren Granada.
And I'm Angel Salcedo.
We begin with the latest on a
Great.
shootout in New Jersey.
Take.
6 people were
Ready,
killed
B?
in a gun battle
And we're gonna flash over.
Tuesday in Jersey City. The 2 gunmen, a police officer, and 3 bystanders died from gunshot
Roll.
wounds.
Flash.
Tough day for the Jersey
Ready,
Police
A.
Department.
So that's an example of what Good Morning Emerson looks like in the beginning. And the rundown was going alongside it, so you could kind of follow along. So shows can move fast, and as a director, your best chance of really keeping up with it is being prepared when you get in there. Now I'm going to do an example from a musical performance. I say a lot of stupid stuff when I'm directing, so just ignore that. But
Cue him. Ready, 3. Take. Ready, 4. Go, Faye. Take. Ready, 1. That is a hard start filter. I like that. Ready, 1. Take.
Jason, I'll be
Ready, 2.
cheering for you as you
Coming to you next, Nikki, and you're gonna hold there. Take. That's good. Good job, Nikki. Ready, 3.
Glassy eyes as you
I'll key you, Brenda.
rejoice in the
Take. And go up.
Jason, why so
Ready, 5.
sad? It's as
Ooh.
if
Ooh.
we are
You saw it. Okay, go
one
Dan.
and the same.
Take.
Watch those pretty
Keep
eyes
going. Keep going wide.
I left after you.
And push.
You only kiss me with
Ready,
the
3.
lights off, baby. Am I good?
Keep going. I'll tell you when to leave. Keep going.
so that's an example of that. We'll talk about that in a second. But here's what you should do after the show. Also, if you weren't following along, the rundown was on the script was on the right side. But after your show's over, There's a lot you can do. Obviously, decompress. Your first time doing it, you're probably gonna be a little tired. It's just a lot of talking, even if you don't get stressed. But you can watch your director's track back and see what can be improved. So that, for example, was my director's track for that. When I watch it in hindsight, I'm like, should have done that differently, could have done that differently, but don't beat yourself up. We're all college students. It is what it is. And your director's track is just recorded on the same file as program. So you can just get that from the studio. Construction. Watching professional directors afterwards is a great idea to get some more ideas and come back with some more of your own. And again, like not beating yourself up after directing is a good idea because things will go wrong. You want to get a second chance, but problem with live directing is you usually get one chance and then it's gone. So just get used to that idea. Some resources you can go to after this if you want. The studio website has guides on every single position, including directing if you want to learn about all the other positions. You can always email me. I'm always happy to talk. Diana Barden, who is the advisor for the EIVs and for Emerson channel, is someone who's always happy to talk about broadcast and directing. She has been the script and production supervisors for the Oscars, the Tonys, the Emmys, every show. She's done everything. She has a lot of experience. Another resource is a director compilation that has Haley Broderick, Destiny Espineda, and me. That's just like a 25-minute video with a bunch of different directors from different shows if you want to see what other people sound like and look like when they direct. Watching old Emerson channel, EIV, and NBS stuff, also a great resource. There's a lot of great stuff on all three orgs. And then submitting to the EVs, not an ad. I say that because anytime you submit to the EVs, you get feedback from the people judging it. So a really great thing with multi-camera directing is your category is only multi-camera directors and all the judges are multi-camera directors that are actively working now. So they'll give a lot of great feedback and give you things that you could work on for the next year. I know for me, I've submitted 2 years and both times I got really great information that helped me get better the next time. And like I got stuff from last year that I'm definitely gonna use this year for the limited stuff I'm directing. Any questions? Let me stop sharing my screen. Does anyone have any questions about that? All right, I'll drop in the, will I drop it? I'll drop in the PowerPoint into the chat if you want it. That has all the links I was talking about if you want to take a look. Okay, that's uploading. If you don't have any questions, you're welcome to leave, but I'll hang around for a little bit if you think of anything. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Nusha, do you want to ask your question?
No, I'm just downloading the slide.
Oh, okay. I had a question about in the GME example, you were saying, I was trying to catch all the phrases you were saying. I heard animate, I heard wipe, and then I heard trigger. What was that for?
So trigger is like a very specific thing I picked up from a previous director. Our opening is through clip storage, just like a normal wipe, but it also comes with audio. Same thing with our intro. So for that, because the way like an EMEM timeline works, when it starts, it pauses, then you hit run. So instead of saying like play or something, you don't want to confuse anyone, you say trigger. It's a very specific word that no other position is going to use. So that was just kind of the one that we picked up for that.
Cool.
Wow, I was about to ask a question, but I forgot it.
No worries, take your time.
I guess, how can we submit to the EVs?
Yeah, so I don't know when they usually open up towards the end of the fall semester. There's going to be advertising everywhere and you can submit then. I
think you can submit now. I think I saw one of the Instagram posts and they were like, we're open to submission. I don't remember.
Probably.
Maybe
no idea. I'm out of the loop. I'm a little old. But yeah, whenever submit, they might be open now, but whenever they're open until usually like early March. So like you don't have to submit something right now. Like you have plenty of time. I do highly suggest, and I forgot to mention this, wait until there is a discount, because they usually do a 2-for-1 or like half off. Definitely wait for that because they're like $10 and you can drop it to $5. So if you want to submit more than one thing, definitely wait for a discount.
Will do. This is pretty exciting. So I guess you can submit just like multiple films or projects.
Yeah, there's a ton of different again, this is not an ad, but there are a ton of different categories. Everything from like short film to like animation, multi-camera directing, television show, cinematography. It's like a normal award show, but more encompassing of like all Emerson students. So there's really categories for like all majors, but obviously the film stuff.
Sick.
So wait, you guys did work with the Emerson channel?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to submit for that too, and
great, you mentioned that. I am the scheduling and submissions coordinator for the Emerson channel. If you'd like, you can, here, I'll put my email in there.
Okay.
If you'd like to submit and have it air on the Emerson channel, send it to me.
Wait, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, so I just put my email in there. If you want to submit to the Emerson channel, just send it there. I'll screen it, make sure it's good, and then we can air that onto the Emerson channel.
Okay.
What can you submit?
You can submit really anything, films from high school you made, anything you make here, anything you make for class.
And anything from a community college I made?
Totally. Anything you've made, send it over to us. And by us, I mean me. And then I'm in charge of making the schedule, and I'll just air it.
Sweet.